Welcome to Lesson 7 of DaVinci Decoders, Division A, SILE Connect course. This lesson will be about the Tapcode cipher. Have you ever wondered what prisoners use to communicate with others without getting caught? Well, this leads you to the cipher known as Tapcode. The Tapcode ciphers was introduced in 1965 by 4 prisoners of war held in Vietnam. This brings us to the Science Olympiad Division A program, where we use ciphers to decode written messages and find the secret phrase hidden within plain sight. The Tapcode cipher is decoded using a 5x5 grid with all the letters of the alphabet fit inside. As you can see, the C and K letters are combined inside the 5x5 grid, which means you have to use your core knowledge and determine which one is used in the word. The 5x5 checkerboard will not be given on the resource sheet, which means you must be able to remember and make it during the test. The cipher text will always look like a bunch of dots and spaces. As you can see, the dots and spaces are pretty easily distinguished. As you can see, there's a space between this 2 value and 3 value, and it makes the letter H. To begin solving, you must first separate each 2 groups of letters, or dots. As you can see, there's a 2 and a 3 value here, which means you must write a line after, because there's 2 groups of dots. Then there's a 1 and 5, and write another line, 5, 2, line, 2, 3, line, etc. And continue on doing that process until you finish the entire thing. It shouldn't be too hard, as you could just right. It should look like this once you finish separating the first line. To begin decoding, you must first recognize the amount of dots and the value of each. For the first group, you could see that there is a 2 value and a 3 value. You first want to look at the first value, which is 2 dots. Since it's 2 dots, you want to go down 2 spaces on the left y-axis column of the grid. Then you want to recognize the second value of dots, which is 3 in this case. Using that information, you can go right on the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis of the grid, and look at 3. Since you have the numbers 2 and 3, you want to make those 2 numbers meet into the middle. So keep going right and down until you go meet. In this case, the letter we have is H. You could do the same for 1 and 5. Since it's 1 on the first value, you get 1. Since it's 5 on the second value, you get 5. So you want to go right 5 and down once on the y-axis. You want to make them meet together. 5 goes here, 1 goes here, and you get E. So you currently have H and E. Continuing that on, you have 5 and 2, which you get W. 2 and 3, again H, 3 and 4, and again O. It should look, and then you want to write the letter that you got underneath the ciphers, the dots. It should look like this. He, who. Note that the spaces that are supposed to be in the sentence will not be given on during this decoding process. So you must use your context and core knowledge to figure out which words and which letters are with which letter and word. For example, in this case, it makes more sense as he who instead of H-U, a ho. You must continue doing that for the rest of the cipher. A few examples. Please use the table on the top left side of the screen to help you solve. Unless you want to do it on your own paper and practice making the grid yourself. Please note that you must always learn how to practice and create the grid on your own because it will not be given on the resource sheet. A few times during my competitions when I was in Division A, I lost a lot of time trying to figure out how to create one. So always learn and remember how to create one quickly and efficiently without wasting a lot of time. Here are the answers to the 2 ciphers that you just completed. First one is, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter. Second one is, hi, if you are struggling on this, do not worry, it's all part of the process. Keep practicing for perfection. Don't worry, this cipher takes practice. So, if you haven't got the hang of it, do not worry. The more you practice, the more you perfect the cipher. So you want to always practice the cipher and decoding and practicing creating the 5x5 grid. A few tips for success. One tip is that you always want to remember the frequency rates. You want to know from lesson 2, the aristocrat lesson, that E, T, O, and A are very frequent letters, and you always want to look out for them. In this case, you want to remember the value if 1 and 5 of 1 and 5. So if you see one dot and then 5 dots following it, then you would most likely know that's E. Same thing for T, which is easier to remember because it's just a 4 and 4. Should be pretty easy to remember that because 4 and 4 equals T. T and E are very frequent and frequent words and letters that come during sentences. Another tip is using context to fill, or using whatever you already have to figure out the next word. For example, if you have there is some tea, then you can infer that it's either something or sometimes, because everything else doesn't really make sense. And something is really common. A few frequent questions. Is it y-axis, which is the vertical, or x-axis, which is the horizontal, that comes first? The answer is the y-axis. The y-axis is the one going up. You always want to go down or up before going right. Should we prioritize these Tapcode ciphers? The answer is yes, completely, especially if you're good and fast at it. It's really easy points to get, especially if you know how to do it very well. How many are these they're going to be on the test? Usually 2 or 3, but it usually varies depending on which test you're taking. You should always be prepared for more or less. A few places to practice. You could use Toby's test generators, which is an online tool which you can make tests with. It uses the exact same format as the usual tests that you will usually see during a competition. You will first search up Toby's, TOEBES.com, and you will click the Codebusters building site. Then you will go to Test Builder or Test Template, which you can create a test on your own. To find quotes that you want to put inside, you could ask ChatGPT to generate a few quotes that are the reasonable amount depending on the cipher. You can include any cipher that you want, including aristocrat, Caesar, Tapcode, and even dancing men. So, whatever cipher you want to practice, you could use that. Especially if you want to practice Tapcode. After building your test, since you know all the answers because you searched it up or used ChatGPT to find the quotes, you will trade a test with a peer or your partner. So you won't know the answers to their test, but they won't know the answers to your test. So you can complete the test that they built. Knowing that, you could take the test and have plenty of practice with Tapcode and other ciphers that you may need practice on. Decode the cipher on the right. It is Tapcode. This time, I want you to practice making the 5x5 grid on a piece of scratch paper. Feel free to pause the video and solve it at your own pace. The answer to this is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Do you have any questions that were unrelated, or do you have any questions that weren't said in the video? Feel free to email me any questions related to this event. My email is 31talnathan@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great journey doing DaVinci Decoders.